Hello and welcome to the debate. I'm your host Sarah Makpoor with you at PTV World. In today's show, we're going to be taking a look at two important stories. The first is in reference to Pakistan's negotiations with the United States with regards to reciprocal tariffs that started back in May. And we know that the final round of negotiations is also continuing with the finance minister, also in the US, with discussions as to what really is going on, and has been speaking about how these talks have been very constructive so far. And so a lot is expected in terms of the US-Pakistan trade dialogue, and this is going to be important in terms of what is going to be the benefit for Pakistan, while of course positive statements have been coming in from the US side, including from the Secretary of State, emphasizing that Pakistan is a very important partner in trade and economic cooperation. But how does that translate into, particularly with regards to the reciprocal tariffs? A tariff that was earlier imposed of 29%, but then the decision being suspended. But so far we've known, of course, that the negotiations have gone well, but what is it that has been discussed remains to be seen, and will be the focus of our first segment. The next one is also going to be taking a look at what is going on in the US, but with respect to India. We know that there has been a number of diplomatic blows that India has received with reference to the United States, especially after the India-Pakistan conflict, in which the United States mediated, and then of course we saw following that there was no real support that India gained from the international community, including the US, regarding their false allegations with reference to the Pahalgam incident. And then also in terms of what we see with regards to Pakistan's leadership of the armed forces and the Air Force that were invited to the United States. And we know that the Field Marshal met the President Donald Trump. And then we now see that a letter has been written to the leader of the Khalistan Movement in the US, and we've seen that that is something that acknowledges the movement, of course, also reiterates support in the fact that the lives of the US citizens are more important than anything else to the US president. And so this has been something that is being endorsed and provided support in letter and spirit by the United States president, and at the same time is something that the Indian government has been emphasizing as a terrorist organization, of course outrightly attacking as well. And so we're going to be taking a look at what that means in terms of the diplomatic blow that the BJP, that government is facing in India, and what that means in terms of the US-India relations. For that and more, as always, in the studios, I've been joined by analyst Farooq Patafi and Raja Faisal, and we've also been joined online by senior analyst Dr. Niaz Murtaza. Thank you very much, Dr. Niaz, for joining us and being a part of the discussion. And I'll start with you with reference to how we see what has been going on, particularly in terms of our economic ties with the US, and then, of course, the kind of decisions that we saw coming out by the Trump administrations, particularly in terms of tariffs. This is, of course, a discussion very, very important for Pakistan. While the decision remains suspended, what sort of hope do you have in terms of what we've been hearing coming out of both the finance minister and then, of course, the US counterparts, as well, as to how this is going?
Yeah, thank you very much. Of course, we need to situate this whole matter in the overall context of what the US is trying to achieve, which is to, reduce this huge current account deficit, or more particularly the trade deficit that it has with the rest of the world. And that trade deficit has built over the years because of the fact that, the cost of labor in the US has been rising. So then it's also become a financial hub, global financial hub. And once a country becomes a global financial hub, its currency tends to appreciate. And once the currency appreciates, then its exports to the rest of the world become more expensive, and there are other countries which are able to produce the same goods at a cheaper cost and supply them to the rest of the world. And that is what has happened with respect to China and USA in particular, that industrial production has been moving to China because it's much cheaper to produce it, and US goods are becoming uncompetitive. So it's become more focused on service sector, very advanced manufacturing, and then the financial sector. So now this was all happening, and then comes Trump, who had tried a few things even in his first term, but now he sees that as a huge problem instead of, seeing the whole picture of what has happened to the status of the US as becoming largely a financial superpower, and the fact that the US dollar serves as the global currency, which has its own advantages for the US. It's just focusing on, one narrow part of the overall economic picture, which is, the fact that the US has a trade deficit. But even if the US has trade deficit, what happens is that those countries which have a trade surplus, once they earn those dollars, they just park it back, bring it back, and, invest most of it into US treasuries. So the US also has a big fiscal deficit, and for that it needs loan, and it gets loans from the rest of the world, which keeps its borrowing cost or its interests low. So it's a very complicated picture, and just focusing on one aspect of it and insisting that, the US trade deficit should go down without looking at the overall picture of what impact it will have on dollar supplies to the rest of the world. He's been trying. Now within that picture, of course, Pakistan is a small player. It exports about, maybe what, $5 or $6 billion per year. Pakistan does have a trade surplus with the US, but it's a very small part of, the picture of US overall imports, which run into, hundreds of billions of dollars, over trillion. So, but still, since, the tariffs have been slapped on everybody, they have also been slapped. Before this thing happened, Pakistan used to face about a 10% tariff structure, and now, it became 29%, which would have an impact on Pakistan, depending also on, what kind of tariffs the USA also applies to Pakistan's nearest competitors for the same products that Pakistan sends to the US. So now the good thing that has happened is that, a few other kind of relationships are developing between Pakistan and the US on things like, investment in minerals. So whatever discussions take place, they will not focus totally on tariffs, but I think that it will be an overall discussion on, the overall economic relationship between the two countries. If they focus only on tariffs, then the US goal would be to look at, trying to reduce the deficit, getting Pakistan to, import more from the US. For example, crude oil is one of the things being mentioned. Now, Pakistan gets very preferential rates and terms and conditions for crude oil from its, friendly countries in the Gulf, of course. So if Pakistan has to buy, oil from US, it may be more expensive just because of the distance and so on. But if you put everything together, the US investment interest in investing in, minerals in Pakistan, then, a more favorable picture may come out. Now, of course, very little, details have been coming out on how things are going, but there is a deadline of, August 1. And now, the finance minister is going again. The foreign minister, the deputy prime minister met Rubio a couple of days back. They had another call yesterday. So hopefully, in 1 or 2 days, things will get clearer, and we may be able to, reach a win-win situation.
Dr. Niaz, do you think there is, in when we talk about these negotiations and of course the ways that this is flourishing in different aspects, what is the situation in terms of the trust that the US has on Pakistan for delivering and for partnering, especially in terms of trade investment, the kind of business environment or economic conditions that we have, or the teams that we provide, and how we move forward, especially what we've shown with the IMF package as well?
And Dr. Niaz, if you can also highlight the aspect of cryptocurrency, reason being Pakistan is one of the countries that is actually pursuing cryptocurrency, and we know that somebody sitting in the cabinet of Donald Trump, Steve Witkoff, his son, he's involved in this, and of course it is very dear to Trump himself that crypto should be a success, and Pakistan is joining hands with US. Can this factor be pivotal as well in terms of the kind of negotiations Pakistan is going to have, because we can say that since Pakistan has been showing tendencies towards cryptocurrency and towards having a good relation with the US in terms of cryptocurrency, it has been playing very well for Pakistan's diplomacy as well.
Well, yeah, as I said, I don't think the negotiations will focus very narrowly just on tariffs. I think they will focus on investment in the minerals and also cryptocurrency. And since, the foreign minister met the US foreign minister, there may be also be some discussions on things like, political issues, foreign policy issues related to, counterterrorism, cooperation and so on. So if the focus was just on tariffs, that would have been more harmful for Pakistan because, given the US's, economic muscle, it may have, extracted an unfavorable trade regime with the US where Pakistan faces still not as high as 29%, but maybe increase from 10 to 15% tariffs, and then Pakistan having to, open its market to US goods, which may be more expensive than what we get in other areas. But if you bring in, these other issues, investment, if, and cryptocurrency, and if Pakistan can, present a very compelling case that, okay, beyond the tariff issues, if the US gives some preferential treatment to Pakistan on the tariff issues, especially given how small a trading partner the US is and how little it is contributing to its huge trade deficits. And against that, Pakistan can, offer much more in terms of, the critical minerals that the US needs, and then, the Trump interest in cryptocurrency. Then, of course, we may be able to extract some, preferential treatment on the tariffs and get US focus away from tariffs and into an overall picture. But then obviously we'll also have to make sure that, whatever discussions we have in terms of investment in minerals and cryptocurrency are also in Pakistan's interest, because cryptocurrency is of course a still evolving area, and very few countries are thinking in terms of investing their foreign reserves into cryptocurrency because there are risks of fall in its levels. So those are all very complicated issues, and that's why, as you see, the negotiations have been going on for several weeks. But since there are so many issues involved, and that's why we are so close to the deadline. And who knows, the deadline is of course an evolving one. We might see it might get extended to another day, 10 days, if if just a few issues are left. So all in all, I think we'll know a little better, but it's in Pakistan's interest to develop a broader relationship beyond just the tariff issues.
Right. Farooq, when we take a look at the partnership, of course, especially with regards to trade and economic relations with the United States, what makes Pakistan the partner that the US needs, and in what ways can we really offer what they're looking for in the region?
Right, Sana, thank you very much once again. Political economy question for an economic issue, right? I understand that Pakistan has been actually talking about its geopolitical importance, and has been actually working in tandem with the US for many decades. And so far our baseline agreement has been, whenever there is cooperation, instead of actually getting access to trade, although there is access to trade also, but what we in the end keep getting is aid, right, or some kind of loans or some kind of support. Now the government of Pakistan has repeatedly actually spoke about the importance of economic diplomacy, and that commerce should lead foreign policy, and in that the country should have access to better markets, bigger markets, and with some kind of concessions also. Now the problem, and here, with your permission, I wanted to address the issues that were discussed earlier, particularly the importance of what President Trump is trying to achieve and what Pakistan, how Pakistan fits into the equation. So President Trump's, the reason why he actually went for these tariffs and trying to correct the trade imbalances was essentially because in America there has been this feeling that America has deindustrialized over past many decades because of offshoring of many manufacturing jobs. Because of that, what has happened is that America is basically working on service industry. So the idea was to actually reshore most of the industries and ensure that even if some countries exporting to America, they should be manufacturing in America. Of course, they can bring their money and do whatever they want to. We have seen many countries actually pledging huge investments and many companies also, including Japan, Saudis are also investing, umpteen others. So the purpose was to ensure, create so many hurdles for people to just dump their product in America, and if they don't, then there should be incentive, because if you are going to manufacture, even if you are a foreign company and you are manufacturing in America, or the idea is that there you have zero tariff, right? With Pakistan, because offshoring happened in other countries, not in Pakistan mostly. So Pakistan has been somehow, because we were kind of inept in the past, we have been beneficiaries of this ineptness also. Because we could not capture markets, we could not bring industry here that much as compared to India, China, elsewhere, Vietnam for that matter. Because of that, we are not seen through that lens. Now, earlier, Dr. Saab has actually highlighted major aspects that are needed. For example, crypto is one thing, but I don't think that crypto actually figures into trade talks. Of course, there has to be a separate, silo for that, and there must be talks. But regarding what they can get from Pakistan, Pakistani minerals are important, especially America and the West is now focusing more and more because of the trade war that went on briefly between China and America, rare earths and these rare minerals. So Pakistan also has a good deposit of that. And then remember that there are other recently, actually a couple of years ago, we heard about offshore mineral deposits in Pakistan, right? And those can be exploited. We need basically $5 billion to actually become or start one of the biggest oil and gas fields in Pakistan, offshore, field of that sort. So Pakistan can be contributing also. Unfortunately, the problem that we have repeatedly been talking about, whenever our Prime Minister or any senior went to any other country, was that Pakistani exporters are unfortunately one-trick pony. We keep on just going for textiles and textiles, and there's only so much that you can innovate in textile. So what happens is that every time there is any exogenous shock to the system, there's a better competitor in the market or cheaper cost labor country exporting to those markets, you are just wiped out. Pakistan's total exports 4 to 5 billion is nothing to write home about, right? So Pakistan needs to actually build capacity also. While crypto is important, while Pakistan can also import and also go for joint ventures or so many other things, Pakistan needs to understand what kind of market it is actually going for. And now it is high-tech market. You have to actually focus on creation of smartphones. You have to actually leverage AI also. And AI, of course, for crypto, Pakistan had created this mega electricity, carve out that can go there for crypto mining. But I wish that can also include AI, because Pakistan needs compute. Earlier, a few days ago, I was saying that this is our request that should be to the Chinese than to the US because of CHIPS Act, because of the trade war, and especially when it comes to chip wars. Pakistan hasn't been able to bring in better GPUs or similar kind of technologies. So there should be some concession regarding that. But so far, Americans have been very generous when it comes to Pakistan's case. I hope that we can build on that and we can create an environment which contributes to American industry also, which can actually work in tandem with whatever is needed in America, not only those 3-4 items that we have been reading about since my childhood, textile, leather garments, sports goods, and surgery equipment.
Absolutely. Dr. Niaz, we'll now move on to our second issue with reference to when we take a look at the US's relationship and dynamic with India. And we know that there have been a series of diplomatic blows that India has received with regards to this relationship, especially when we take a look at what has happened post the recent India-Pakistan conflict. And now a letter has been written to the leader of the Khalistan Movement. And this is something, of course, very different in terms of the line that is being followed by the BJP-led government. So I want your take in terms of first, what is really going on within the US or in the Trump administration as to what they're deciding or what they want to do vis-a-vis their relationship with India.
Yeah, well, again, it's Trump's unique take on things and his policy of, America first, which is again creating the issues even with India. So, with trade, USA has a huge trade deficit with India as well. Pakistan's is minuscule, but, India's trade with USA is much higher, and its a trade surplus with the USA is much higher. Now that wasn't a problem with the Biden administration, and it basically saw India as a counterweight to China in its strategic and security relationship. But Trump is less interested in that aspect of it, and he's more interested in bringing jobs back to the US and reducing the trade deficit. So that's one area. Then his other big focus beyond trade is immigration. So he wants to cut down immigration rates, both undocumented immigration as well as legal immigration. So there again, India is probably the biggest source of legal immigration, and to some extent even the undocumented immigration, because a lot of Indians go through Mexico even. So that's another flashpoint. So that's why the relationship with India. Modi may have been thinking that he has a wavelength with Trump. They have similar personality, populist, bigoted politics. So they'd get along, but then what has come as a surprise is Trump's focus on trade deficit and immigration. So those are huge bones of contention between the USA and India. Then there is also the issue with this what India has been doing, both in terms of trying to kill the Khalistani leaders in Canada, and to some extent even in the USA. That has also caused a lot of discomfiture in the USA. So it's there are ruffles in the feather in the relationship between India and USA. Now, whether that really has a long-term impact, that needs to be seen, because India still has its importance for the USA in terms of the security relationship, the foreign policy relationship. There is the Quad, which is a counterweight to China. So obviously, once if they are able to resolve the trade issues and immigration issues, then the focus may pivot back to that older relationship. So again, it's an evolving relationship, just as Pakistan's relationship is evolving. But the big thing is the attention that Pakistan has received from the Trump administration, and that has come as a bolt to India. I don't think either Pakistan or India were expecting that there would be such a huge interest in the Trump administration to, work closely with Pakistan. And you've seen, this flurry of, visits and lunches at the White House, telephone calls, etc., repeated mentioning of Pakistan. So that's also caught India off guard. So again, those things are going to take a lot, but ultimately Pakistan also has to, look at its own order, as Farooq was saying that we're still stuck with the old, textile and those kind of a relationship. If we are looking for a new trade deal, we should try to build in some space for some non-traditional exports from our side, so that we can improve the quality, not just the quantity of our exports, but also the quality of imports into higher value goods, which expand the industrial sector in Pakistan, which results in better labor costs for the people, for the laborers, better management practices within Pakistan. So all of that has to be done by Pakistan internally too, where we can engage, because we've had relationships, strong relationships with USA for decades, three times for 10 years each. But what was the net result of that? Many see the relationship causing more damage to Pakistan because of the terrorism that spread and so on. So it's important that Pakistan, it has so many opportunities now. It's friendly with China right now. It's friendly with the Gulf, even Russia, USA. But it has to put its own house in order, so that it can take advantage of all these relationships to develop its economy on a more sustainable and equitable path where the masses benefit.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Dr. Niaz Murtaza, for joining us and being a part of the discussion today. Faisal, I want your take on this matter as well. We've talked about how there's a shift in the way that the US is looking at India and Pakistan post this recent conflict. But in terms of what the strategic alignment is at the moment with reference to other elements such as the Khalistan Movement and the US, and then, of course, what India's stance is on the matter, how will that eventually play out?
Yes, Anna, first of all, I'll highlight one aspect which was, of course, discussed by Dr. Niaz as well, and that was of Quad. We all know that India is desperately seeking Quad to turn itself into a military alliance, but so far, India has started realizing that it is nothing more than a tea party at all. And when it comes to, of course, Quad is not going to be military alliance. Reason being a trilateral cooperation between amongst South Korea and then Japan and the Americans. It is already in place in East China Sea, and when we talk about Australia, it's part of AUKUS, and when we talk about US doesn't need any military alliances, but still it has the alliances in shape of AUKUS. When it comes to India, India is the only part of Quad that hasn't got any military alliance, and they have been, of course, desperate for it. When it comes to this particular letter, I think it is another indication and another gobsmacking from Trump. As we know that somebody tries to be over smart in front of Trump comes back very harsh on them. And of course, we know that very sophisticated kind of foreign minister for external affairs of India, he's been trying to come up with the notions and phrases, and he's been very bullying style external minister India is having. He's been coming up with all of these statements, and to counter them statements and the Modi's statements, of course, this was a very befitting reply to India from Trump's side, sending a letter to Gurpant Singh Punnu. And the reason being, he's the very person who's been, of course, being targeted by RAW itself inside US, and Trump reiterating the facts that all of his US nationals, they are, of course, very important to Trump and very important to the US as a state. And when it comes to Trump's letter, it clearly says that all kind of support would be extended to Pannu. It is coming at a time when we know that on 17th of August we are going to see a referendum going to take place, Khalistan referendum going to take place in Washington, and that would be another sort of a statement itself for India and the kind of Indian atrocities within India against the minorities. And overall, this is going to be a huge statement from US itself. When we talk about what's going on in India itself, I mean, I think since yesterday, the circus we have been, observing coming straight away from Lok Sabha, from Parliament of India, that was amazing to watch. I mean, I have been going through many of the statements from member of the National Assembly, from of course, Congress Party and allies of Congress Party. It was fascinating to see them questioning Rajnath Singh, who's been bragging about Mahadev. And we all know what kind of Mahadev and modus operandi of Mahadev would be. We know that all the time they have a large number of youthful Kashmiris from Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir who get kidnapped by the rogue military of India inside Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, and whenever they need to stage a sort of encounter, they simply do that, and they simply portray as if they were the culprits, and we have of course countered them. So far the kind of pictures we have been seeing, they were AI generated pictures, and if we talk about the whole mapping and everything, it is available. There are tools available on different apps, Google apps, or sort of Apple apps. You can simply download them apps, and you can create all of these evidences which we are seeing coming from India as a state. And when we talk about the the evidence they collected from there, Pakistani chocolates, I mean, were they green? I mean, chocolates, Pakistani chocolates. What are you trying to?
You turn green after eating it.
Yeah, you turn green, or you start saying Pakistan Zindabad after that, or what kind of chocolate it is? I mean, what kind of evidence you are bringing forward from India? And of course, when we talk about this Mahadev, it's been highlighted, but there were questions raised by the members of parliament, and this is very important. Why I say it is very important? Because I could see some kind of secularism in Lok Sabha today, some kind of democracy oozing out from Lok Sabha today, because they have been simply asking again and again, how on earth you can deny the facts which are being highlighted from all over the world. Especially President of US is endorsing the fact that there were 6 planes that were shot down by Pakistan of India. And if this is the case, how on earth Rajnath can speak lies after lies in front of Lok Sabha?
Right.
Because there is a respect and honor of Lok Sabha, and that respect and honor of parliament should never be diminished, which of course has been simply diminished by BJP's government.
Sure.
Because they are just they are taking a mick out of the truth, and that truth is that India was bashed big time in Sindoor, and they are still claiming that Sindoor is simply paused. It is not finished yet, and it will be finished in the coming future.
Right.
When we will be of course giving a reply to Pakistan. But it's not about replying Pakistan. It is all about one upcoming election. The day that election is over, Sindoor is over.
Right, I understand that, but Farooq, I want your take on what is really happening with the BJP government in terms of the gain or the loss here. Is this stalled Operation Sindoor really helping the election prospects? And how big of a blow are the moves that we've seen the Trump administration taking with respect to Pakistan or the Khalistan movement? What really is the real impact at the political situation in the BJP government stronghold?
Right, Sana, thank you very much for the question. I think that with your permission, I'm going to just actually comment on something that,
Sure.
that Faisal just mentioned, Operation Mahadev. Of course, since what he was actually commenting, it happened yesterday. Since then, Modi also has appeared in the parliament, and there have been more questions that were lobbed at those people. And unfortunately, their claims have no basis in reality, right? But something very interesting happened. Yesterday, when the debate started, all of a sudden, so from somewhere, media realized that there is a breaking news, and they cut off from the critical MPs and they went to the breaking news. What was the breaking news? They are claiming that Operation Mahadev has been launched, and in that they have actually killed masterminds of Pahalgam, two of them, right? And all of a sudden, one would think that whatever negativity is coming in this split screen reality, they are trying to actually dampen the impact of the debate that is going on. Then what happened? Debate kept on going. After the debate, when the session was over, all of a sudden, reporters started saying that they are two terrorists, we don't know who they are, and that they were killed through drones, so we don't even have the image, and the story just disappeared. So this is the kind of magical realism of denial that India lives in. And now let me also talk about this Panu business, this letter that has provided us the opportunity. Framing is everything, timing is everything, and framing is everything. And this is where Modi's India has started contaminating the world. And this is why every country is re-evaluating their relationship with India. Because there used to be a song in one of the Indian movies back in the 80s. The movie was called Namak Halal, and Amitabh movie, and in that there's a song called Aapka to lagta hai bas yahi sapna, Ram Ram japna paraya mal apna. And that the only dream that comes from you is that keep on chanting name of God and just taking other people's things for your own, right? So in the past 20 years, India has helped itself, and especially 11, with whatever the other countries had. Not only the media is mad, but everything that is reported by the Western media on these regions and on this region is also viewed through Indian lens. So this letter, which was essentially written to one of the citizens to assure him that whatever India was trying to do, they were trying to kill you, we are here to support you and we are here to protect you, all of a sudden becomes a statement on India. And because that framing has continued, you have seen the kind of fake news that Indian side has been able to normalize in the Western media. And then what do? They come on, in their parliament and they accuse the other side of doing exactly that, right? India has been doing it, and everybody knows that India has this affliction that will go, by the way, by the, when was it, September 17th, hopefully. By then it will be phased out because they have found new people who might potentially be replacing him. So if that happens, if all those optics disappear, then India will find its way back in the Committee of Nations. Otherwise, by the way, again, India or Indian government actually repeatedly keeps on doing exactly what the propaganda minister of Hitler used to do, accuse the other side of doing exactly what you're supposed to do. For example, when Rahul Gandhi actually became the opposition leader, or so de facto opposition leader, because in the past there wasn't that seat was not available to the opposition. So they started using word Pappu for him, right? The context here is that Pappu is somebody who might look okay, good, but he is foolish person and really makes fool of himself. Excuse me, on international stage, who reminds you of Pappu? Rahul Gandhi or Narendra Modi, who is trying to actually sneak into every frame of picture, right? So this kind of obsession with optics of one man and his ego has really killed India, and now it threatens to kill the world as well. So hopefully in coming days, India realizes and pulls itself back from the brink. Otherwise, everything will be destroyed in India, and India might end up contaminating the world as well further.
Right. Thank you, Farooq. Thank you, Faisal, for joining us in the debate as always. And we'll be here, of course, to talk about these situations as they evolve. But that's all that we have time for today. We'll now see you tomorrow.